welcome. Thanks for those who just joined us. We are going live now with Sarah Campbell, who is a two-time egg donor and two-time gestational surrogate, to share her experience. And today's live is powered by Pinnacle Surrogacy. So we are just getting Sarah in now, and we can answer your questions, which are brilliant, and hear about her experience, and also questions from the community about surrogacy. So let's see if we can get her in now and we can make a start. Hi to those who are joining. Nice to see you today. Still trying to locate Sarah. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Hopefully Sarah will be here in a second and we can make a start. I know that she is ready to speak and share her experiences and answer any questions that you guys have. So here we go. It's going to be a very informative live. So we are just waiting for Sarah Campbell to join, who has been an egg donor herself twice, as well as a gestational surrogate twice. Hello, Sarah. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Please could you start by introducing yourself? And as I mentioned, today's live is powered by Pinnacle Surrogacy, a distinguished program offering expedited surrogate matching to Pinnacle Network patients. And we're going to talk a little bit about your own experience in this field in terms of being a donor and a surrogate. Twice, I believe. Tests, checkups, process, screening, and also what happens after the birth. So please introduce yourself.
Of course. So my name is Sarah. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I started getting interested in this world because I actually saw another one of my friends go through being a surrogate. And she had a great experience. And so I was always, that was like 10 years ago, back in probably 2013 or 14. And so it was kind of on my mind that was an interest and something I wanted to explore. And so I kind of dipped my toes in the water by doing a couple egg donations in 2017, and was really lucky enough to get involved with specifically the coordinator I had, Amber, over at Pinnacle. She's amazing, and kind of just transitioned from doing the egg donor to a couple years later deciding to do a surrogacy. And yeah, it just kind of was a natural progression for me. I had really lucky to have two of my own wonderful kids and easy pregnancies with them. And so it was something that I was interested in doing.
Amazing. So I'd love to ask a little bit about, well, you mentioned how you decided to do it, but what was the screening, can you walk us through the screening process generally for surrogates, how you found that, what kind of assessments did you have to go through?
Of course. Yeah, so being a surrogate generally starts with just kind of filling out a questionnaire, making sure that you meet the basic requirements. And then the screening process involves some stuff on the medical side, obviously, making sure that you're healthy enough to carry a baby, lab work, and that sort of thing. But then there's also some other pieces along with that go into it. There's a psychological assessment, a sort of assessment tool that you take, and then interview with a marriage and family therapist to make sure emotionally that it's something that you're ready to do as well. You meet with a social worker that does sort of a home visit to make sure that your environment is safe. And then, yeah, like, so a couple other like medical screening involves sort of the normal like PAP and different things like that, as well as a water ultrasound to make sure that your uterus is healthy and ready to carry a baby.
Amazing. And how did you and the intended parents connect originally, and what was it the process like for you in terms of that relationship, never having done it before?
Yeah, so I've done two surrogacies. I started one journey back in 2019, and then my second journey I just completed this year, and gave birth in June. So the first time around, and really like any time that you're a surrogate with Pinnacle, you're going to be completing a profile that answers a lot of questions already about sort of what you're looking for in a journey, because obviously it's, it's something that we have to be on the same
Yeah.
page about as far
Yeah.
as what kind of relationship we're looking for with the intended parents, and then they fill out that profile as well, right? So basically Pinnacle does an amazing job at looking through those and kind of providing the intended parents with surrogates that already are in line with the things they're looking for. And they do a great job with matching. And then the first step, so after the intended parents, see my profile, for instance, and say, okay, yes, we want to have a match meeting with her. And so Pinnacle will set up a Zoom meeting that they'll attend and facilitate between the intended parents and the surrogate to just meet for the first time virtually, ask all the questions, and kind of set up similar to this a lot of those questions about what interests you and why you want to do this and kind of what you're looking for. And so that's the first meeting. And then after that, you both sort of decide, yes, we want to move forward. And after that, you can have Pinnacle can help with facilitating some of those communications. I was fortunate to have both times intended parents where we pretty quickly, had a good relationship and were able to sort of take that offline, and just start talking with each other directly.
What was their kind of need for a surrogate? Was it different scenarios for both surrogacy journeys in terms of the intended parents?
Yeah, so definitely very different situations. The first surrogacy that I did was for an international couple that actually had a previous she had a previous pregnancy that had some complications. And so they already did have one child, but just for health reasons, she um, didn't feel like it was safe to
Yeah.
carry again. And so that's why she decided to go with the surrogate. And then the second couple that I carried for was actually a gay couple. So they, definitely needed a
Yeah.
uterus to be able to make that happen.
Amazing, amazing. And were there any concerns that you had, or kind of apprehensions or fears ahead of doing either of these journeys?
Yeah, I think for myself, having seen my friend go through it, the biggest concern that most people have is like, if am I going to have attachment to baby?
Hmm.
That wasn't really a huge concern for me. I watched my friend go through it. I felt like, I had that mindset going in of like, this isn't my
Yeah.
child, right? And I think that's what, but that's one of the ones I hear the most from other surrogates is that first time, like, or from people asking me like throughout the journey is that going to be a problem? And I think because you go into it knowing this isn't your child, it's a lot easier than most people expect that piece to be. You still form a bond in the sense, like I call it like, it's kind of like that, like that anti bond. Like I still want to make sure that this child is okay and healthy. And I love, and we'll probably talk about this in a little bit, the like picture updates to see how they're doing and staying connected afterwards and seeing them grow up. But in a very deep sense, like it's just so exciting to see that couple be able to hold their baby for the first time. It's not, there's not that. The other piece about the process that I personally was a little bit apprehensive about was some of the like giving myself injections. So
Yeah.
some of the medical stuff. So that can be, if you've never had to give yourself injections before. That can be definitely a little bit scary. But I was pretty surprised at, first of all, like the nurses at the Pinnacle Clinic that I was at did a great job of making me feel comfortable and competent, and like I was going to be able to do that. And I did with my egg donation some smaller injections, like subcutaneous injections, and kind of, I guess, got a feel for that. So then when I was doing the sort of more daily intramuscular injections that I needed to do for the IVF, for the embryo transfer and the pregnancy, that I got pretty comfortable with that pretty early on. Like the first couple times, a little bit sketchy,
Yeah.
a little bit scary, but
Same for
once you
everyone.
do it a few
Yeah.
times, like get used to it. It's now, like if I go get like a vaccine or something, I'm like, oh, like I wish I could just give it to to myself because
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable at that point. So that was probably one of the big ones for me, and I hear that from other people too. But I was pretty happy about how fast it was to get used to that.
So these are intramuscular injections to prepare your uterus lining, I presume, ahead of embryo transfer.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. And then in terms of during, so tests, checkups, what was your pre-pregnancy, embryo transfer into pregnancy experience like?
Yeah, so of course, like that sort of pre-pregnancy experience, you're going to be doing a lot more checkups and medical interventions than quote unquote like normal pregnancy or spontaneous pregnancy. So doing the injections, taking the medication, they do a really great job at providing you with all the information you need to feel pretty competent in doing that, as far as a calendar of when to start what medication and what to take, and they're very great about answering all those questions. So there is a period of time leading up to the embryo transfer where you do start taking the medications, where you'll have a couple check-ins and ultrasounds to make sure that your uterine lining is doing what it's supposed to do, that your ovaries are quiet and doing what they're supposed to do, to prepare you to be ready for that embryo transfer. And then, of course, like early on, and for the first few months, I guess 12 weeks, you'll continue taking some of those medications. So a lot more early ultrasounds and check-ins after the transfer as well than you would have in a typical pregnancy. But then after 12 weeks, you're, released over to your regular OB, and that, kind of takes over, and it's just the sort of normal check-ins that you would have throughout a regular pregnancy. Um, the other thing too that was great about these journeys for me, and coming from like the mental health field myself, um, I mentioned before, like that there's this like psychological assessment portion. So there's also, when you do start that journey, you have that support as well, from, in my case, it was from the same office that they provided that ongoing support and check-ins for me to see like how I was doing in each trimester, and more often if needed, depending on kind of what's going on. And then same with dietitian support. And so they'll provide a dietitian that you'll talk to pre-transfer to help, you know like all the macros and everything that you need for pregnancy, and then another check-in in later on in the pregnancy to see how you're doing, and kind of give you some more tips and stuff throughout the pregnancy. So that was pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, it's great to have that holistic support ahead
Absolutely.
of getting pregnant, transfer, etc., just to set you up the best possible. As everyone will know, joining, there are so many key things that you can be doing to optimize your health ahead of pregnancy, and then of course during. And are you in contact with the intended parents now? How do you, or how did you during the pregnancy, and prior to the pregnancy, how did you manage that relationship, and how has it changed since both births?
Of course. Yeah, so the first pregnancy was with an international couple. So our relationship is a little different in the sense that, you know, it's keeping in touch with
Yeah.
someone, you know, in a different country is a little bit more complicated. So they weren't able to come to quite as many of, you know, the appointments and things during pregnancy. But I would use WhatsApp, send them updates of my appointments, check in every once in a while, kind of give them updates on milestones, right? So like when I felt the baby kick for the first time, or these other important things that they, you know, would want to be a part of. Um, we didn't really have like a daily contact, but it was definitely very regular throughout the pregnancy. And then we I delivered in April of 2020, so that was understandably a pretty wild time
Yeah.
as far as travel and being in a hospital. So that was definitely something that changed, I think, the dynamic of things. And they were only able to stay for a few weeks after before they went back home. And so we have maintained our relationship. I get some, I think that mom still follows me on Instagram, and I get occasional picture updates here and there when they've, you know, had their big milestones and birthdays and things too. And then the most recent surrogacy that I did, they're closer. They're only a few hours from me.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was definitely a factor, you know, of course, in our relationship and how much we were in contact and even saw each other in person during the pregnancy. So they came out for all of the sort of big appointments and big ultrasounds, growth ultrasound, all of those things. They were able to come over. They were able to come over for the birth and, you know, stay for a little while. And then we've definitely kept in contact because I have been providing them with breast milk for baby for a much longer period of time. And they even invited me and my kiddos out to come visit. So we were able, when she was about 2 months old, we were able to go out and see her and visit them.
That's so
So that was a
nice.
pretty awesome experience.
How did you kind of navigate talking to your children about being a surrogate?
Yeah, so that is definitely a question that I get a lot. Like, you know, did the kids understand? My kiddos were a little bit older when I started that first journey. Let's see, um, they were 8 and 10. So they were definitely at an age where I was able to talk with them um, pretty well about, you know, what the surrogacy was about, and they had a really good understanding of, you know, why I wanted to do it, and I was very very open and sort of candid with them about the process. And now they just like think it's normal, so because I've done it twice, and this is just like a thing that mom
Yeah.
does. And so I remember my younger one, while I was pregnant with the second surrogacy, coming home just shocked one day at school that like someone at his school didn't know what a surrogacy was. So this is just normal to them at this point,
Yeah,
and
sure.
something
So
something
well
that I do.
educated. But it's amazing, isn't it? Because I've got sperm donor conceived children, and even from a young age, for children to be learning about how different families are created, and it's not always
Absolutely.
easy for everyone. And, you know, doing something like being a surrogate, being an egg donor, being a sperm donor, it's the most incredible gift that you could give anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's exciting for me that they sort of have this knowledge growing up that like families, there's a lot of different ways to create a family. And so this is, yeah, just normal to them at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of Pinnacle Surrogacy, tell us a bit about the support. Were there any unexpected challenges along the road in the lead up to delivery or following in both journeys?
Yeah. Yeah, so as I mentioned, that first surrogacy, there was one giant challenge right towards the end,
Yeah,
which was the COVID
which
pandemic.
no one would
Um,
have ever imagined or
right.
like forecast. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a pretty wild situation, and I was really impressed at how Pinnacle just came in and supported me, and I'm sure like other surrogates that were in this situation where you know, there was so much unknown and so much uncertainty. My coordinator at the time, I lived in LA, which was really close to her, so she actually showed up and was my support person when I was when I was giving birth to that first surrogate baby. And because the parents unfortunately weren't able to come to the hospital, and so like she showed up and was there in person, and even helped with like, you know, dealing with sort of the logistical, like filling out and faxing and getting power of attorney forms so that I would be able to have baby in the room with me, since the parents couldn't come in until the next day. So they just really went all in and were so helpful in that what could have been a really like difficult and scary situation, with, like I said, all of that uncertainty. So that was probably the biggest one for me, that
That's
where
a
they
big
just
one.
really
Yeah.
really just dove in and made me feel like everything was under control.
Good.
And that's a good feeling, right? When
Mhm.
there's a lot of uncertainty, for sure.
Yeah.
In my second journey, I did have a couple sort of early scares with some bleeding that turned out to, um, obviously I gave birth in June, and you know, she was fine and healthy, but so obviously that was scary,
Yeah.
with any pregnancy when you experience something like that early on. And they were so responsive. You know, I reached out to them first, kind of, you know, recommendations, what should I do, and just they were so supportive and caring when I was, you know, going through that as well.
Mhm.
So pretty much anytime I had a question, they were just, of minor or major issues that came up, they're so responsive, and I get, you know, pretty immediately a response answering my question, or even just let me check into that and I'll get back to you.
Fantastic.
So that has, I've, you know, seen, you know, been in surrogate groups and talked with other surrogates that didn't have that experience, and I think I definitely was a little bit spoiled going, and was very lucky to find them and have the experience that I did with that support, for sure.
Mhm. Amazing. I mean, that support is key, isn't it, to changing your experience with the whole thing. And also the fact that you chose to do it again, shows that it's something that worked out really well first time and, of course, second time. So amazing. And tell us a little bit more about the delivery.
Yeah,
Which
so
one?
I was very fortunate, you know, other than the wild COVID situation with the first one, and giving birth in the middle of that sort of initial lockdown. I had very easy births with both, and was able to give birth naturally, didn't need a C-section, which was great. And especially, like, I'll talk kind of more towards the second one, when the dads were able to be in the delivery room with me. I was really fortunate that the hospital was very understanding about how, you know, this soul journey would work, and just seeing them be able to see their baby for the first time. And I gave birth pretty quickly. Like once I started pushing, like she was out
Yeah.
very, very fast, faster, I think, than anyone in the room was expecting that to happen. And so just having the dads get to see their baby for the first time is such a beautiful, amazing thing. Like that's the part for me that like makes all of the medical stuff, the morning sickness, the injections, everything about that, like being able to see the parents with their baby for the first time, and in this case, like right away, and get that like skin to skin contact. And it's just such an amazing, beautiful, and emotional time for everybody.
Had you planned that with Pinnacle Surrogacy and the intended parents in terms of what the birth would, well, not necessarily what it would be like, but what you were hoping to achieve and what would happen straight after delivery and who would be in the room? Was that all planned?
So that that is something that, like, in that initial sort of match meeting that I mentioned earlier, a lot of those questions are answered in that meeting. Sort of what, what the hopes are around, like I said before, like the relationship, but also just about around the pregnancy. And some of those questions are definitely answered. And it's something that then, once we kind of took that offline and got closer, that we had more conversations about the specifics about it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And you mentioned pumping breast milk for the baby or babies after birth. How does that work logistically, and how do you agree for how long you're going to do it?
Yeah, so that is, of course, there is a contract that you enter into as a surrogate. And that is part of the contract,
Right.
whether you are intending to or open to pumping breast milk for baby. Um, so I did with the first one for a few weeks. They were staying close by, and so they actually just had someone come over and pick that up from me daily to give to baby. In most cases, I think it's more like what I'm doing or just finished doing actually with this set of intended parents. So in the hospital, I was pumping and, giving them the colostrum. And then once they went home, I continued pumping and to establish my supply, and was just freezing it and shipping to them. And so Pinnacle was a big part in helping coordinate that. I would message my coordinator, like, here's, pack up the boxes. They'd actually like supply the boxes and get that out to me. And then I'd pack it up, let them know. They'd, send me the shipping label. So they were very integral in all of that piece as well. So, and then, yeah, weekly-ish, I would send off a box of frozen milk. And I literally just kind of wrapped that up. Last Friday was the last time pumping for them. And so I am slowly tapering down on that front, and kind of getting ready to get back to normal, not pumping around the clock.
Yeah, well, it's an amazing thing to do because that's an extension of the postpartum healing process, isn't it? And physically and emotionally, it can be quite a lot. So, it'd be interesting to know how you've kind of recovered, obviously physically, but also emotionally from having been a part of this process to it
Yeah.
being over.
Yeah, I think for me personally, pumping was a big part of that recovery. I think from a mental health standpoint, um, as a therapist, I work with a lot of perinatal mental health, and actually, sort of being a surrogate is what sort of got me into that niche and interested in that. So when we talk about like surrogacy and mental health, we are going to experience the same hormonal fluctuations afterwards. Like, we're going to kind of experience that couple of weeks of like the baby blues. And for me, the sort of hormones and everything produced by breastfeeding, that was something I knew I wanted to do to sort of help me through that transition emotionally.
Mhm.
So not all surrogates choose to do that or want to, and that's, totally okay. But for me, that was a big part of what I think helped me recover both physically and emotionally, to be able to do that for at least a period of time.
And how do you feel that these two surrogacy journeys have impacted you longer term?
Longer term, I mean, of course, like, just feeling like I have these awesome connections for life, right? I mean, that's just the relationships that I formed have been wonderful. And just, even physically, of course, we talk about like it is a risk to our bodies, but I also think that it is such has been a really good thing for me physically, because I've worked a lot harder to keep myself healthy to do this, both the pregnancies and pumping postpartum. And so in a way, I have this like extra motivation to keep myself healthy, to do that. So I think it's impacted me, yeah, kind of in a lot of those ways. years. And then emotionally, and honestly, even career wise, like I mentioned, like it's really gave me this special interest of working with perinatal mental health and, moms that are dealing with fertility issues and postpartum depression. And also, like, I got a certificate in lactation education because I,
Wow.
was interested in that. During COVID, I was very bored. So I did a
Well,
bunch of got my extra trainings in, and so was
that's
able to do that.
amazing.
So it's really just, shaped me and my career and a lot of things for me doing this. And I think Pinnacle, the support from Pinnacle, and even the relationships I formed with the people at Pinnacle and my coordinator have been a big part of that as well.
Well, knowing the team myself, they are wonderful, and you've obviously been in excellent hands. Thank you for sharing your experience so candidly with us today. For
Of
anyone
course.
who is interested in surrogacy, please do head to our link in bio to find out more about Pinnacle Surrogacy, who would be very happy to assist, whether that's interest in becoming a surrogate or whether that's interest in pursuing a surrogacy journey as an intended parent. They're here for you. So I urge you to get in touch with the team today. And Sarah, it's been wonderful speaking with you. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences today and coming on to chat with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
You too. Bye. Bye.